Hello, my name is Dylan and welcome to Boost and Ethanol car comparisons. Today we're going to be looking at the best way to modify your car, or whether you should even bother at all. So, there are sort of three ways in my eyes to go about having a fast car. You can either upgrade it yourself, as I've done here with this MX-5. You can let the game upgrade the car for you. Of course, this is an easy way to upgrade your car, and guarantees that it will be near the top of the class. But that does mean that sometimes the cars can have handling issues and you're not quite sure how the game has upgraded your cars, meaning that you can have some kind of difficulties, perhaps the car isn't particularly optimised. Or you can use a car at the top of its class, like this Nissan Silvia here. This car is at the top of D class, like the way that I've upgraded the two Mazdas, and because of that it should be fairly competitive, at least according to the game. Whether it will be, there's only one way to find out, and that's by taking it around a track. But before we do that, I think it would be best to look at the statistics of the car to get an idea of the kind of power they have. Anyway, let's get to it. So, here we are now in the garage looking at the statistics of the cars. With the two MX-5s here. For some reason, the one that I modified isn't showing up. And the Nissan Silvia by here. So the Silvia here has the most power by quite a lot, but it does also weigh the most. It has pretty good weight distributions, but fairly even to the two MX-5s. I tried to pick cars that were as close to each other as possible to make this fair. Of course, I can just pick another Silvia because that wouldn't make any sense. So, next in the sort of power is, the second highest power is the MX-5 that the game has upgraded. I've noticed the game tends to try and balance things out more in terms of upgrades. But the problem being is that sometimes it can miss out important parts like differentials and tyres, along with perhaps things that don't change the PI of the car. Then there's my MX-5. Sorry about that. Then there's my MX-5. It has 193 horsepower and 161 pounds-feet of torque, and is quite a lot heavier than the game upgraded MX-5. So, in theory, then it should be at a disadvantage. Whether it actually will be, though, isn't entirely obvious. Of course, because the game doesn't add aero parts, and I don't believe it's changed tyres on it. So, that could be interesting. Speaking of tyres, I'm fairly certain the Nissan Silvia is on sports tyres, so it isn't running the basic tyres like this MX-5 is, I believe. So, yeah, anyway, we're going to go on to track now, and sort of talk about the way each of the cars drive, and then I'll do my summary of how I think each car is and how you should spend your money. Okay, here we are on track now with the automatically upgraded MX-5. Excuse my driving there. I hate that first corner on Brands Hatch Indy. So this car was interesting to drive. It was okay in the turn-in. It had a decent turning grip. But if you made a mistake, then this car was really unforgiving. It will snap oversteer. As you see there, I went onto a curb and spun the vehicle out. That was fairly easy to do. Luckily I didn't do it, I learnt my lesson after that, but it was kind of hard to be consistent with this car. Which is, you know, not exactly what you want for a race car. Sure, it's all good having a fast car, but if it isn't particularly consistent, then, you know, you're going to make a mistake during a race, right? Which isn't at all what you want. You want preferably an easy to drive car as possible, unless you're really skilled and can rather easily hold a car in a skid, sort of balance it out, and know how to carry corner speed. So yeah, this car was difficult to drive. I'm going to leave the lap times until the end of this run, and hopefully have it up on screen. So yeah, it's going to be slightly easier to process all those numbers for you. Anyway, on to our next car. Okay, here we are now with the MX-5 that I modified myself. Now, surprisingly, a bit like my MR2, this car has a bit of trouble getting off the line. I'm not quite sure why that is. Yeah, it's really something that kind of puzzles me. But anyway, that isn't really too much of an issue. You can always shorten the gear ratios to get a better launch. So that really isn't too much of an issue. Now this car was pretty decent to drive as long as you stayed away from the curbs. Thing is, the suspension on this car was so low and so stiff that if you clipped a curb, then there was no telling where you'd go, because the car would snap on you and you'd just be gone. It was a bit of an issue, really, as while this car was fast when you could get a lap right, if you didn't, then you'd end up losing quite a lot of time. I think I show it here now. As I come in, get a wheel, get onto the curb, hit the brakes, and turn in, and then spin out. And then the cameraman gets confused. On into a shot and saying, but yeah, that tends to happen. Well, that happened a couple of times where you can just get your wheel caught on a curb, and then it just shoots you off. And there's just not much you can do about it. Perhaps if I put a front splitter on this car, it could help balance it out a bit, but that could then cost you even more straight line speed than the little you already have. So onto our final car now, the Nissan Silvia S15. So here we are finally with the Nissan Silvia. This car was sort of in the middle compared to the other cars. It wasn't insanely fast around the corners, but at the same time it wouldn't snap on you. It was a sort of in the middle car, as in, except for in straight line speed, obviously. It was overall a fairly safe car to drive. It was incredibly consistent as well. I felt like I could push this constantly without any fear of spinning out. Of course, that could happen at a moment if I was pushing it too hard, as this is front engine rear wheel drive. But for the most part, it was quite a nice car to drive. Of course, performance, it was also the fastest car here. So unless the MX-5 that I modified was incredibly inconsistent, then this car should be easily the best. So, is that the case? Well, let's find out. Okay, so on to the lap times. First of all, the automatically upgraded Mazda MX-5 did a 1 minute .566, which is about average. It's what I expected these cars to do. Next is the MX-5 that I upgraded myself, which did a 58 seconds .187, so it was considerably faster. It was more than 2 seconds faster than the automatically upgraded MX-5, which surprised me, but in a happy way, because that means that my upgrading is the best upgrading, at least for a handling track. Then there is the Nissan Silvia, as you see on screen now. That's a lap time of 58 seconds .863. So it's only a tiny bit slower than the MX-5 and a lot cheaper, because I didn't put on new tyres or anything. I just paid the standard price of the car, which, if I remember right, is less than 25,000 credits, which is pretty good, considering the sort of speed and the value for money you get. So, all in all, the Nissan Silvia seems to be the best here. But the MX-5 that I upgraded was the faster. The Silvia was more consistent though. While I do feel that tuning the MX-5 could have made it quicker, I'm not sure whether I could have completely made it more consistent. I know I could have spent ages upgrading it and spent loads and loads of money. So value for money, I think, goes to the Silvia. At least in these low classes, it seems that buying a high PI car seems to do better, at least value for money wise. Overall speed, obviously, just upgrade your own car and try and optimise it for the kind of track you're going on, obviously. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you've enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe. And until then, until the next video, goodbye.